Hello everybody, welcome to Snyder's Inc. and today we got a MrBallen video. I might do one more other one today, but I'm not really sure. Because I had one planned and I accidentally exited it. And now this one's up. So I'm going to do this next. And then I might do the other one still. We'll see. But this one is MrBallen. This is her acting was almost as bad as her evil plan. We don't get right into this. Ladies and gentlemen, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, comments thing down below. Let's go.
In 2009, the popular true crime TV show Cops just happened to be in South Florida filming when a truly diabolical crime was committed there. And so cops captured this crime on camera. But someone in their footage was hiding something. And when you know what that something was, it becomes very obvious when you watch. But before we get into today's story, if you're a fan of the strange, dark, and mysterious delivered in story format, then you've come to the right place because that's all we do, and we upload once or twice every week. So if that's of interest to you, please ask the like button if you can borrow their car for the week, and then when they say yes, spend that week driving around picking up as much roadkill as possible and packing it into their trunk. Picking up as much roadkill as you possibly can and pack it into their back seat in their trunk and then return the car. Also, please subscribe to our channel and turn on all notifications so you don't miss any of our weekly uploads. All right, let's get into today's story.
Next. The setup.
Michael DiPolito grew up in a very rough neighborhood in South Philadelphia where violence...
Born and raised, I bet the playground was where he spent most of his days.
Drugs and prostitution were just normal parts of everyday life. At a young age, like his parents, Michael became an alcoholic. He also developed a very serious drug addiction that he paid for by selling drugs. Michael would eventually drop out of high school, and not long after that, he became homeless and was living out on the streets, sleeping in abandoned buildings at night to stay warm. In 1993, when Michael was still in South Philadelphia, he was arrested for the first time. He was charged with possession of an unknown drug as well as intent to distribute this unknown drug. Court records don't specify what drug this was. However, Michael just didn't.
That's actually weird. I would think they would. I don't know why they would not hide what drug it is. It's not like it's that big of a deal.
Not show up for court, and so a warrant was put out for his arrest. Michael would somehow manage to evade police capture, and by 1997, he had fled South Philly altogether and landed in South Florida in a town called Boca Raton. Shortly after arriving there, Michael was arrested for a second time, this time for offering an undercover police officer $15 in exchange for sex. Michael would plead guilty to soliciting prostitution.
My man was desperate for money, wasn't he? My man was desperate for money. That is insane.
However, he would just get released. A year after the prostitution arrest, Michael was sued by a former girlfriend named Karen Tan, who claimed he was the father of her son, and so he owed her child support. And Karen had a DNA test that backed up this claim. However, Michael, again, would just not show up for court, and before long, Karen just gave up and dropped the lawsuit. Michael was likely very relieved when this happened.
How does this work? How does he just get away with things because he just doesn't show up to court? That isn't how the law works. The fact he went to Florida and then the Florida thing didn't just know he had a warrant out for him or like a thing was just it's insane.
Happened because at the time, he was making almost no money through a temp agency. And so after this lawsuit gets dropped, Michael decides, I need to go out and make some real money. And somehow, on his quest to find a more lucrative opportunity, Michael was introduced to associates of the Bonanno family. And the Bonanno family is one of the infamous 5 families that dominates organized crime across the United States. They are literally the Italian mafia.
How the heck did he just happen to get introduced to these men? What situation happened that led him to get introduced to these men? I am so curious.
And after the mafia met Michael, they took a liking to him, and they did offer him a more lucrative, albeit illegal, opportunity. They gave him a role inside one of their so-called boiler rooms. A boiler room is not literally a boiler room. Instead, it's a group of fraudsters that use high-pressure sales tactics to steal money from unsuspecting victims. Typically, the way it works is the fraudster will cold call someone, and they will tell them that they have this great get-rich-quick scheme, but you gotta give me your money right now if you want to be a part of it. And so when the victim says, okay, that sounds great, and they wire the money along, the fraudster just steals their money. Michael, who was very...
Now, you must be thinking, I know what y'all thinking, how on earth would you fall for this? How would you fall? You gotta think, they're thinking mostly elders, right? Elders think, like a 20-year-old ain't gonna fall for this, I would think. Right? 20-year-old, 30-year-old, them aren't gonna fall for this. But a 60-year-old, 70-year-old, 80-year-old person probably will. Especially if the right tactic is used. That's usually who they target. They don't really go after young people. There's a reason for that. But also in the 90s, right? Like, this doesn't work really today. That's why most people who use, most scam calls don't really get nowhere. They just don't get nowhere anymore, really. I'm saying that, but then again, there's people who kind of they still keep going, so they must get away with it somehow. But, like, most young people don't fall for it now, and they probably didn't then either.
Charismatic and a natural salesman, got really good at tricking people into giving him their money. And so eventually, Michael realized he could make a lot more money if he started his own boiler room, where his commission could be much higher on the money he stole. And so fairly abruptly, he left the mafia's boiler room. We don't really know how they reacted to this, and Michael would say,
I'm surprised that would work. I'm surprised he'd be allowed to, because, you know, if you're in the mafia, you usually don't get out of the mafia. I don't think they just like that you just up and leave, especially if you're going to start a rival problem for them.
Set up not one, but two boiler room scams of his own in South Florida. And by 2002, he had pocketed $155,000 of stolen money. However, he had spent virtually all of it on fancy hotels and cars and phone sex. But the good...
Phone sex. Not human sex. Not actual sex. Phone sex. Why is that where you my man, you could go get an actual woman. There are many women who are guys that just have money. That's all most women... That's what most women care about this day and age. You'll find many women who'll just say who the main thing about when a man, doesn't matter how he looks, doesn't matter whatever. You got a ton of money, they'll jump right on you. It's fucking weird. That's just the way they work. So yeah, I don't know what you need for. You could definitely find a whole bunch of money. You can find a bunch of women just by having money.
Times would not last for Michael, because in 2002, the police caught on to Michael's boiler room scams, and they raided them, and Michael was arrested for a third time, except this time he would go to court, he would stand trial, and he would be sentenced to 2 years in prison, 28 years of probation, and he would be...
28 years of probation! Do you know how long that is? That is a long probation. I would rather 28 years. I'd rather switched. Give me 28 years in prison and 2 years probation. Because probation is a bitch. I've never been sentenced to anything. But I can tell you, judging by what I've heard of probation, it is not a fun thing to experience for 28 years. Nah.
Ordered to pay back the $155,000 that he stole. Michael would only serve 7 months of his 2-year jail sentence, but that was more than enough to leave a huge impact on him. Michael hated prison. He hated every second of it. And so during those long sleepless nights that he was laying awake in his cell, he made a promise to himself that when he got out, when he was released, he would never, ever come back. And so in 2003, when he was released, He immediately entered a sobriety program. He also started going to the gym every morning, and he began studying for his GED, which is a high school equivalency test because he didn't get his high school diploma. After he successfully earned his GED a couple of months later, he would also start a legal business. It was a digital marketing firm that was called Mad Money Inc. Over the next several years,
I'm the type of guy that's always wanted to turn Snyder's Inc. into a full business. But I don't have the brains to do it, so I need people to help me with that one. But yeah, that won't happen probably at all, or at least anytime soon. But yeah, I'd be shocked if that part does happen. What I do know is this smart guy, he was in prison 7 whole months and said, no, I don't want to be. When I get released, I'm never going near this place again. I'm never doing anything with the possibility of me doing it is there again.
Michael would do his very best to stay on the straight and narrow and not get in trouble, and for the most part, he did that. By 2008, Michael was still sober, despite a few setbacks, and he was still very focused on his physical fitness and his health, and his business, Mad Money, was doing quite well, earning him nearly $100,000 a year. But his love life had become a bit messy. Michael had gotten married back in 2007 to his longtime girlfriend named Maria Luongo, who had stood by him when he went to jail. But that year, in 2008, when Michael was 38 years old, he cheated on Maria with a 26-year-old real estate agent named Dalia Mohammed, who he met.
Man, don't cheat. Don't you cheat. Don't do it. Don't you do it. I'm telling y'all, man. Don't y'all cheat. She is fine. But that doesn't undo it. Because I also don't know what his girlfriend looks like. So his girlfriend might have been fine too. We don't know. But also, fine can also mean crazy. And since I'm guessing I'm gonna guess, she's the star of our show here. She's the star of her acting is almost as bad as her evil plan. I'm gonna guess she's the her.
Met at a Starbucks. And instead of their affair being a quick fling, as they likely both intended it to be, Michael and Dalia quickly fell in love. And when that happened, Michael went to his wife Maria and he told her, and then he divorced her. Just 3 days after the divorce finalized, Michael and Dalia went to the courthouse and they got married. The newlyweds
My man, you just got divorced and 3 days later you got married. I'm telling y'all, I don't get married. I don't get marriage. I don't get it. I'm telling y'all, I mean it. I don't get this type of stuff is definitely what I don't get. Why would you? You just got married, you divorced, you have to deal with a whole load of crap from the divorce thing. Why would you then want to get married again? 3 days later. I don't get it. I don't get it.
Would move into a brand new condo that Michael had purchased for them in Boynton Beach, which is a beautiful town in South Florida. And for a time, their life was perfect. They knew it was a little outrageous the way they had met each other and how quickly they had fallen for each other, but they didn't care. They got along great and they were excited about the future. But their perfect life would not last long. On the evening of March 12th, 2009, so only about a month after they had gotten married, Michael and Dalia were at home in their condo when they heard a knock on the front door. And so Michael went to the door, he opened it up, and much to his surprise, standing on the other side was his probation officer, and behind him was a whole bunch of police officers. And before Michael could even ask what was going on, the probation officer told Michael that they had received an anonymous call tipping them off that Michael was selling steroids and ecstasy pills and other drugs out of his condo. Michael would tell the probation officer that there was no way that was true. He is not selling any drugs, he's sober, he's not doing that. And so eventually Michael just stepped aside and said, please come in, search my condo, I have nothing to hide. And so sure enough, the police, they would go into his condo, they would search it, but they wouldn't find anything, and they would leave. And so after the police had gone...
I am gonna go under the impression that Dalia, I think that's her name, right? Dalia is the chick he's with. Dalia is one who the star of the show here. That's how I'm labeling her, the star of the show. So I'm going to assume she made the anonymous call or she had someone do it. And if that's the case, why won't you put drugs in there? If your goal, because if your plan is, because if he gets caught with drugs, he goes back to jail, right? That would be the thing. So if you call saying he's selling steroids and his probation officer finds it, he's going back to jail. If that is your goal, to send him back to jail, for whatever reason, maybe just because you have another guy on the side and you want to bring him in instead, whatever it is, you gotta put the drugs there. You gotta put the stuff there so they find it. That way he goes to jail. Because if they don't find nothing, he ain't gonna go nowhere because the call's a lot. They ain't just gonna hear you call them and say, hey, he sells steroids, and then not look and just arrest him. That isn't how it works.
And Michael and Dahlia found themselves just standing in their condo, completely dumbfounded. But instead of trying to get to the bottom of it right then and there about who had called and why, they just decided it was best for them to just leave their condo for the night and go stay at a nice hotel. So they packed up some bags, they left their condo, which was a total mess from the police search, and they went to the hotel and they had a nice night together. The next morning, when they got up and headed down to the parking lot, they saw up ahead, standing around Michael's car, was Michael's probation officer as well as several other police officers. And so Michael and Dahlia are looking at each other like, what is this, again? And so they hustle on over to Michael's car, and before they can even plead their innocence to Michael's probation officer, he stops Michael and just says, look, we got another anonymous call, this time telling us that you are selling drugs out of your vehicle, and so we need to search it. And so Michael is just totally beside himself, but he says, look, go ahead, search it, there's nothing in the car. And so sure enough, the police would open up his car, they'd rip it apart, but again, they wouldn't find anything. Over the next couple of weeks,
Dahlia's bad at this. I'm going under the impression until the end that it's Dahlia we're talking about. No one else, just I bet you when this was under a different title, because it probably wouldn't give it away so easily, but just the part of her acting makes me think it's Dahlia. That's the only her we've heard about. That's the only her we know of. That and his ex, but we haven't. He doesn't show a picture. He didn't show a picture of his ex, so I don't think we're meant to know about it. We don't really need to know about her. We're meant to know about Dahlia, so I'm gonna assume she's the her, and I'm gonna assume her goal is to make anonymous calls, hoping that he just goes to jail. Because that's what would happen if he got caught with the drugs. He'd go back to jail and just don't know for how long, but don't think that really matters at the moment. It's so bizarre how bad she is at this, though. Because if that was the case, you gotta make sure the drugs are there.
the only thing Michael and Dahlia ever wanted to talk about was what the heck was going on. Who is placing these anonymous calls claiming that Michael was selling drugs out of the condo and out of the car? It just didn't add up. They wanted to believe that this was all just one big mistake, but in the back of both of their minds, they were thinking about Michael's very checkered past and his previous dealings with the mafia and with people he had clearly ripped off.
Okay, so cross out the mafia. The mafia is not an option. Even if we're not going to ignore the fact that Dahlia is the her, the mafia would make sure you have drugs. The mafia would make sure you went to jail if that was their goal. They wouldn't just call it in not knowing you had drugs. They'd make sure there were drugs that the police could find in your place. They would make sure of it. So, trust me, it ain't them. The people he ripped off, that is possible. That could be possible. Because they probably aren't as smart as the people here, so they probably could do it, I guess.
And so maybe there was someone in his past that was looking to get back at Michael and maybe get him arrested and sent back to jail. Fast forward to March 29th, so 17 days after that first raid on their condo, and that night, Michael and Dahlia had been eating dinner at a restaurant, and when they left and headed out to the parking lot, once again, standing around Michael's car, were several police officers clearly waiting for him to return. And
this is where I would get suspicious of Dahlia. The only reason my thing would be suspicious is because how did they know we were at this restaurant? Because it has to be either someone following me or someone who would know where we're going. I'd be suspicious of her, but maybe, you know, love is blinding, clearly.
And so without even needing to ask why they were there, Michael and Dahlia, they go over to them and they just start pleading with them to understand that this is a setup. We do not have drugs in this car. We don't know what's going on here. Please, you gotta understand that someone's doing this to us. But this time, when they searched his car, they would find something.
Dahlia finally learned. Dahlia finally realized you gotta put the drug in the... They have to find something. She didn't get it the second time. It was the third time she realized you have to put something in. So she finally put something in them for them to find. At least she did her... for once, she loses a bit of brains here.
Before we go any further, I want to tell you about today's sponsor, Experian.
Skip this, we don't need to,
the story. After searching Michael's car, the police would find a small bag of cocaine stuck inside of a cigarette carton tucked underneath his spare tire in the trunk. And when Michael saw them pull the cocaine out, he began to cry because he knew, even though it was not his and he had not put it there, that he was going to jail because he was going to get arrested for possession.
Yep.
And he was on probation and he was screwed. And so he just begins crying and pleading with police to understand that the cocaine was not his. He swears it's not his. Meanwhile, Dahlia, you know, she's looking at the drugs and now she's second guessing herself. You know, is Michael lying? Is he actually selling drugs and he's been lying to me too?
Oh, come on, Dahlia. Come on, Dahlia. Come on, Dahlia. I ain't buying your game here. You married a man 3 days after she got divorced. Now, suddenly, not long after this starts happening, a man who also has a bunch of money. A man who makes some serious money. Enough money to buy a condo and everything for y'all. A man who makes some serious money. Not long after you get married, he happens to get... police start coming by his door because of anonymous calls. You think I'm buying that? You think it's just a coincidence, Dahlia? See, I see through you people. I see through these people, Dahlia. I see through it.
But when she sees her husband crying hysterically and looking so sincere, she believes that he's got to be telling the truth. And so pretty soon she was standing beside Michael and pleading with police as well to let them go, that this was totally just a setup. And amazingly, these police officers who were aware of the previous raids on Michael and Dahlia's property, they told them, look, we do think this is pretty suspicious that somebody keeps calling.
Okay, good on these officers, right? I seemed like I was upset at the officers. I'm not. I'm upset. I'm not upset with the officers because they, what was I gonna say? Because that makes the most sense. They're like, look, we keep seeing this anonymous calls, and both times we did, now they weren't enough, and now suddenly we find something. So yeah, we do find this a little bit weird. We do find this a little bit weird. We're not gonna, you know. There's clearly something up here.
Again,
the part I went like this, where I was like, Dolly's plan failed the third time. Even the third time when she put the drugs there, she did it the wrong time. She did it the third time. Third time wasn't the charm. Third time is where you messed up, because now they're like, okay, this is suspicious.
About you selling drugs, and now magically the drugs are in your car. And so what we're going to do is we're going to confiscate this cocaine. We're not going to arrest you. Instead, go home, be safe, call us if you see anything strange, you hear anything strange.
This is a very reasonable police. Very rare showing here of very reasonable police officers. Very smart thinking police officers here.
And we're going to begin investigating to figure out who is making all of these calls. And so Michael and Dahlia were totally relieved to hear this. but at the same time, they were kind of terrified because clearly whoever was looking to get Michael in trouble now was prepared to break into his property in order to do it. And so what was stopping them from breaking into their condo and planting drugs in there as well? And so after these police officers left, Michael and Dahlia hopped in the car, they sped back to their condo, and they went inside and they searched it top to bottom, looking for any sign that anyone had recently been in there, or if there were drugs or anything illegal inside of their condo. And after looking and finding nothing, they just locked their doors, shut their windows, shut the blinds, and just prayed that the police would be able to quickly identify who was doing this to them and make them stop. But over the next few months, the police would not figure out who this anonymous caller was, because the caller stopped calling. And so for a little while, Michael and Dahlia were convinced that the whole ordeal was over and done with, and they basically returned to their normal lives. But on August 5th, 2009, roughly 4 months after the cocaine was found in Michael's car, the anonymous caller would come back with a vengeance. On that morning at around 5:45 a.m., Dahlia left the condo, leaving Michael in bed, and she headed out to the local gym to get a workout in. Around 6:30 in the morning, she stepped off the treadmill and she looked at her phone and she saw she had a missed call from a number she didn't recognize, and this number had left her a voicemail. And so she calls her voicemail, she puts it to her ear, and as she's listening, her heart starts to race because it was a Boynton Beach detective telling her there had been some sort of incident at her condo and she needed to come back right away. Terrified, Dahlia grabbed her things and she ran out of the gym, she got in her car, and she called this number back. And when the detective picked up, she tried to get more information from him about what this incident was, what happened. And the detective would only say that it involved her husband, and he would explain everything when she came back. And so in a total state of shock, Dahlia turned on her car and she sped out of the parking lot and she headed back towards her condo. And when she turned onto her street and saw her condo, she hit the brakes and just stared. In front of her condo were all these police cars with their lights on, and police officers were walking around, and yellow crime scene tape was lining the outside of her property. And inside of the taped off area, there were all these crime scene photographers taking pictures of her condo. And so as Dahlia is sitting in her car at the top of the street, just staring at this crazy scene she's seeing, one of the Boynton Beach police officers sees her and walks up, and after confirming that she was Dahlia DiPolito, he said to her, leave your car here and come with me. And so Dahlia, who knows obviously something bad has happened, but really doesn't know the extent of it, she puts her car in park, she gets out, and she begins walking with this police officer over towards this cluster of 3 people that are standing right in front of her property. And it would turn out one of them was the detective who had called her on the phone. And so Dahlia is led over, and that detective, as soon as he sees Dahlia, he walks over to her and he says to her very matter-of-factly that someone had called about a disturbance in their condo, and shots were fired, and unfortunately her husband, Michael, was dead.
Okay, so I still think Dahlia had something to do with it, but that is mafia style. That is how mafia gets revenge, right there. That is how the mafia would get revenge. They just take your ass out if they had an issue with you. They don't have time to waste. They'll get their shit done. So that's the most mafia way that this thing would die for the first time. But I do think Dahlia, the fact it happened to. This incident happened to happen when she was out at the gym. What has my brain thinking? The drugs didn't work, right? The drug plan didn't work. You couldn't get rid of him via him going to jail because he went to. The police, she failed. The 2 times they worked because they didn't find anything. The 3rd time when they did find something, they believed it was suspicious that they happened to find it, and they thought he was being set up. So they told him to go. So that didn't work. So now she's like, well, crap. That's why the anonymous call stopped for like a few months, because she was too busy planning his murder. That was the plan. She planned to kill him. So now you gotta plan his death. And then now he's dead, and now she's gonna be free.
Dahlia, who was totally hysterical, was gently led away from her condo into a nearby police car, and they would drive her to the police station where they would sit her down and begin asking her questions about her husband. And they would say to her, look, I know you just found this out, but we gotta figure out what could have happened because a killer is on the loose. We need to find this person and stop them.
Fair.
And so at first, the conversation was really just Dahlia crying and the detective kind of calming her down. But eventually, she would tell the detective about the anonymous caller who kept calling the police and claiming Michael was selling drugs, and how she and Michael suspected that, probably the anonymous caller was connected to someone from his past, maybe someone from the mafia, or maybe one of the victims of his boiler room scam, or it could be any number of other people that Michael had done wrong in the past. And so the detective, he's taking diligent notes and he's listening to Dahlia. And then at some point in a break in the conversation, he says to Dahlia, okay, it's time to get serious. I need to know if you know this guy. And so Dahlia, she was kind of looking down and she looks up confused what he's talking about. And then the door opens and this huge guy in handcuffs walks into the room.
Come here.
Huh?
Bring this guy in here. Get over here. Get over here.
Oh my god, do they know immediately that she did? Is she so bad at planning a death? Is she so bad at planning a murder that they already figured out who it was her already? Before it even started? After the murder had taken place, did the guy she hired just happen to be the most easy to convince guy to confess? Like they brought him in, they said, who did? Okay, I'll tell you everything. I'll tell you all about this. You see, you know his wife, Dahlia, she told me things. I'll give you all the information you need. Is this already that bad is she that bad at hiring people?
You know who this guy is? You've never seen him before. Do you know her? Put your head up. What were you doing coming out of her house? You know her.
It would turn out Dahlia was lying. She did know.
Of course!
Almost immediately after marrying Michael 6 months earlier, she had stolen $200,000 from him.
Of course she did. Gold digger. Gold digger. Big damn thing. Gold digger. I told you, it was a man with a bunch of money. That's where it all starts. A man with a bunch of money. See? A man with a bunch of money. One that just happened to get man, but behind the married girl not long after, and then not long after all this stuff started. It all came down to money. It always will.
But apparently that wasn't enough for her.
Nope.
She needed the rest of Michael's money as well as his condo. And so she...
Gold digger.
He had been the anonymous caller.
Yep.
She was the one calling the...
No, I called that shit. Now, in fairness, this was more easier than I bet it was to I bet this was more easier to figure out now than it would be probably when it's first uploaded. Because when it's first uploaded, I bet the title was probably way different, and it probably would have been way tougher to figure out. But now, with her acting was bad as the evil plan, all I needed to look at was the only woman they introduced us to in the entire story for me to go, ah, so you're the criminal here. So, in fairness, not as bad. Not as hard to figure out.
The police and tipping them off that Michael was selling drugs out of the condo and out of his car. She was the one who planted the cocaine in the back of his car because she wanted him to get arrested because he was on probation and he would go back to jail for a really long time. But when her efforts failed and Michael did not get arrested and so did not go back to jail, Dahlia moved on to plan B.
Which was kill the man. You got if you can't get him with drugs, if you can't get him arrested for selling drugs, you kill him. It's just naturally how the human mind thinks clearly.
She reached out to one of her ex-boyfriends and she asked him, hey, do you know any hitmen that could murder my husband?
Who just asked that? Who just goes up to her ex-boyfriend that she doesn't know, just goes, hey, you know any hitmen who can murder my husband for me? Who just asked that with a straight... Who is able to ask that? Like, what the hell?
And the ex-boyfriend at first didn't think she was serious, But when she kept asking him about it and began offering to pay and really was making it clear that she wasn't joking around, the ex-boyfriend basically told her, "No, I don't know any hitmen." And then he, the ex-boyfriend, called the Boynton Beach Police Department and told them about Dahlia and her plan to hire a hitman to kill Michael. And so when the Boynton Beach Police Department found out about...
This ex-boyfriend's a smart man. This ex-boyfriend went to them and said, they're like, "Hey, you ain't gonna believe what this chick's doing. This chick my ex just came on me and talked about wanting to hire a hitman. She's been very adamant about it. Like, she's made it very clear she's dead serious. This woman, I think you should look into her."
About this plot, they immediately had one of their undercover agents pose as a hitman and set up a meeting with Dahlia. And so
the woman couldn't even hire a hitman. The woman was in an undercover operation, which means she couldn't even murder her husband. Her husband is still alive. Did they have the husband play dead? Is that what happened? Did the husband, like, if she would have went into the place, would she have seen her dead husband? I don't know how good a man can play dead. That probably would not be easy to do. But, like, what happened here? What happened here? But that husband, apparently, the husband's still alive. We know the husband's still alive. If it's an undercover operation, the husband's still alive. Because, unless... Now, this wouldn't happen unless the undercover officer just decided, yeah, fuck it, why not? And just decided to actually go through with it. That would be a twist. Imagine that twist to a story. I would love to hear that story. That would be amazing. That would be insane. But yeah, I was going to assume that this chick somehow failed to even got caught in an undercover operation. Husband's safe and she's just stupid.
Undercover agent was that huge guy in handcuffs that was led into the room with...
Yeah, so this girl was just bad at hiring people and now she's going to jail. Dahlia is the worst wife setting up her husband I've ever seen. This is the worst attempt at wife setting up her husband. The plan is pure evil, but she failed at every chance. She failed at every attempt.
Dahlia. And so Dahlia goes to meet the undercover agent, the fake hitman. She gets into his car, and there's a hidden camera in the back seat that's filming her the whole time. And she's caught on camera saying she wants to kill her husband. She gives money to the undercover agent. And then as she's about to get out, the agent turns to her and he says, "Are you sure you want to do this? Because as soon as you leave, it's done. I am going to kill Michael, and you can't stop it." This is Dahlia's reaction.
There's no changing. No, there's no, like, I'm determined already. I'm positive, like, 5,000% sure. Like, no, when I say I'm going to do something.
5,000% sure. Freaking hell. She's 5,000% sure she wants him dead.
I'm going to do it. Like, as soon as he told me, listen, I need the money from you, I went, I grabbed it right away. Like, we were good to go. Like, with me, you're not going to have a problem. You're not going to have an issue.
And so the Boynton Beach Police Department, they have all this information about what Dahlia thinks is going to happen, and they decide they can use this information to set her up in the most elaborate way possible. And
I love that. The officers are like, okay, so we just have her arrested? No, we can't just arrest her. Let's have a little bit of fun with this. Let's create the most elaborate freaking thing, a most elaborate way to set her up imaginable. Let's have some fun with this. And they were just like, yeah, let's have some fun with it. I love this.
And it just so happened the very popular true crime TV show, Cops, was filming in the area. And so the Boynton Beach Police Department allowed Cops to be a part of this elaborate setup. So they got to film everything that happened. So on the morning of August 5th, Dahlia got up and left her condo at 5:45 a.m. and headed to the gym, knowing, at least in her mind, that the hitman would be coming to her condo right after her, breaking in and shooting her husband twice in the head, because that was the plan they had come up with that was captured on film. And so after the police see her leave at 5:45 a.m., because they were monitoring the condo, they rushed in, they knocked on the door, and they got Michael to come downstairs. And he had no idea his wife was trying to kill him. So he comes to the door, he's totally confused, but he goes with them, and he's kind of ushered off to the police station. And
oh god, he probably thought he'd go to jail. He's like, I'm not selling anything. Like, just shut up, we're trying to help you here. Michael, we got it's a long story of what's happening. Okay, just get in the car with us. We're gonna take you to this police station and explain it all. But that isn't. Yeah, I wouldn't have no idea how to react if I was Michael. I would have no idea how to react if I found out someone was trying to kill me. I'd have no idea how to react to that.
And then for about the next hour, the police set up a very convincing fake crime scene.
That is amazing. They probably had more fun with this than they want to admit. They might have had a lot of fun. Like getting the thing, setting it up, making it look like a crime scene. They might have had a lot of fun with that.
Right out front of the condo. And then once it was all set up, that detective called Dahlia and left her a voicemail saying that, you know, there's been this incident, you need to come back to your condo. And then a couple of minutes later, when Dahlia called them back and said, okay, I'm coming back to the condo now, that's when the TV crews for the Cops TV show, they kind of set up in the bushes and got ready to film what happened next.
Listen, we had a report of a disturbance at your house, and there were shots fired. Is your husband Michael? Okay, I'm sorry to tell you, ma'am, he's been killed. He's been killed, man. I'm sorry.
No, he's not.
Here's where this goes. Here's the thing, right? Her acting is terrible. And the reason her acting is terrible is that's not how the human brain works. You don't go from blank to crying. That's not how it works. If you were going to, if you would think, the moment you would hear shots of fire, your brain would change. Your mood would change. Because your brain starts thinking of possibilities. Your brain would start going from, oh shit, oh god, no. No. And then your brain, once they said, is your husband, you would be in tears. You would be like, way more upset. Right? Because you'd be coming to the realize, you would know immediately what they're about to tell you. You wouldn't know if he's dead or if he's been shot. But you wouldn't know if he just got shot or he's fully dead. But you would know that something's gone wrong. In her case, she knows what the answer is. She knows what they expect, what the answer they're gonna tell her because she's expected. So she has to fake act like she's sad. But the actual brain would not work that way.
Listen,
No.
try to calm down.
No.
Listen, right now we need to get you to the station.
No.
We need to get you to the police station.
I want to see him.
I can't let you in, man. We have to do our job.
After the fake hitman was pulled out of the interrogation room after Dahlia had said, oh, I don't know who he is, the detective just stared at her in total silence for a minute. And then he broke the news that he totally knew all about her murder plot and that she was going to jail.
You're going to jail today.
I love this detective. This detective just stared at her dead in the eye for like a minute. Probably the most uncomfortable minute she has had. And then just goes, you're going to jail today for soliciting a murder. He didn't hesitate at all. He's not being nice to her. Nah, he ain't got time. Listen, this is my top detective. He's like, I ain't got time to be around the bush with you. You're going to jail. You're going to jail today for what the shit you're trying to do here.
For solicitation of murder, you're under arrest. That's an undercover police officer. Everything has been recorded. You were photographed in the convertible when you sat in his car in the front of CVS. What do you want to do? What do you want to do here, Dahlia? Listen to
I
me.
didn't do anything.
You're going
I
to
didn't
jail.
do anything. I didn't do anything.
Tell me you didn't do anything?
I love this detective. This detective has no sympathy for her. This is how this is the case it should be. He knows it all, right? He knows it's an undercover officer. She planned the murder. That ends the sympathy. So he's just like, you're going to jail. And she's like, I didn't do anything. Don't tell me you didn't do anything. I got all the code. Don't tell me you didn't do anything. You're going to jail today.
You're going to jail today.
He said the best way. I was better than the way I thought. I thought I meant the other times when he said, I didn't actually think he went over to kills you. You're going to jail today. This is probably my favorite detective I've seen. I love this detective. Who's this detective? I want to know who he is.
As soon as I'm done, they're going to come in here and handcuff you and take you to the Palm Beach County Jail book you for solicitation of first-degree murder on your husband. Your husband is well and alive.
Thank God.
Thank God! Thank God! She says, thank God! Your husband is well and alive. Thank God. It's just out of instinct she's trying to she doesn't even know what she's doing anymore. This girl. This is next level. I don't know if I've ever seen a girl who has broke my brain in her level of stupidity than this woman. This is the dumbest woman. This is the worst criminal I think I've seen. This is the worst wife planning a husband, this is the worst wife trying to get rid of a husband I have ever seen. Is there worse? Probably out there, yeah, but this is the worst I've seen. This is insanity. She failed in every account. She failed everything, and her lines in here are... She's saying she didn't do anything, and then when he goes... The woman who when her husband... is like, yeah, he's well in life. She's like, thank God. This is my brain broken. My brain's gone. I've gone.
Oh yeah, thank God. No, he doesn't want to see you. He doesn't want to see you.
After Dahlia was arrested, she was still sitting in that interrogation room when the Boynton Beach Police Department made a special point of walking Dahlia's husband, Michael, past the open door so she could see him. Here's her reaction.
I love this police department. They're like, hey, we're gonna make sure she really understands you're allowed. We're gonna walk your ass right past the door and make sure they know you're allowed.
Oh my God. Come here, please. Come here. Mike, come here. Come here, please. Come here. Why not? I didn't do anything to you. Mike, come here, please.
I'm pretty sure, because you know she's going to try to be a manipulative little bitch. You know damn well she's going to try to manipulate this guy. And he's like, nah, you can't fix this. I heard everything. You cannot fix this. She's like, I didn't do anything. She's like, nah, I heard you. You can't fix this.
Come here.
Dahlia was initially...
Mike, I actually think this is the I did not. I'm gonna be honest, right? Judging by the story, I did not think I would have full sympathy for Mike by the end of the story, but I do. My man was just living, trying to get his life back on track, and then this and happened to end up cheating on his girlfriend with the most craziest bitch he would happen to meet. That's why you don't see. This is why you don't cheat, fellas. You don't meet crazy bitches like this.
initially sentenced to...
If there was ever a story that lets you know why you shouldn't cheat, it's this one.
20 years in prison for what she had done, but after a retrial because of jury bias, her sentence was reduced to 16 years. So, that's going to do it.
I'm confused by the jury bias thing, but okay. Ladies and gentlemen, that is it for this reaction video. Let me know what you think in the comments. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Thank y'all for watching. I'll see y'all for the next one.